All right.
A stream has started. Twitch has accepted it. YouTube has accepted it. And what do you know? Facebook has not accepted it.
Yeah, no, I don't see it on the Peace Center's Facebook notifications
What do
yet.
you know?
Yeah. I wonder why.
So what we have to do.
Yeah, so the basic lineup is after we talk about, I'll have introduced you all, then we're going to be talking about values, as a talking circle kind of thing. Then the humanitarian crisis, the need for a ceasefire, the feelings that arise in people here and there, and then ways people can get more involved. So, it's very general, really. So,
Okay.
yeah. So as a very organic conversation, you'll be able to bring up really a lot, whatever you think needs to be said. So,
Thank you for holding the space.
oh, please. Oh, this has just been all too, what I don't know what the word is.
I don't know words.
Important, engrossing,
Catastrophic.
overwhelming, catastrophically or overwhelmingly catastrophic for so many people, even people that you wouldn't think are paying as much attention. It's just everything. Somehow the Middle East has that quality where, it's been already.
We're waiting
We're
for
about-
Facebook to accept our
You
stream.
just say whatever you want. Add something.
Yeah, we're
Oh
just,
no, I have lots to add. I just didn't want
I know
to,
you do.
Yeah.
yeah, no, we're waiting
No,
for
I mean,
the
y'all
stream.
keep talking. I was just wondering.
No, it could be, well, those are things that we might easily say again.
Yes.
Right.
So we just have to have the stream accepted, and then when we
Yeah, I
start,
was looking on mine to see if I didn't see it.
well, you'll also, Richard, will we have that clock up or no?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're going to have the clock.
So you'll see that also there'll be a clock up, and so I'll give you all a fair warning of when we're going to be stopping pretty soon. Then we'll probably do one more go round of like last words or something. What you want, sort of a bottom line from that you want to share with people, and then I'll close it out. And
Yeah, that's our other mother. Jerusalem is our mother, and Kenya is our mother.
well, make me want to go back. I have never been back. I was there for 3 months.
Oh my
Kenya?
gosh.
3 fantastic,
Wow.
just very key in my life. And
Why were you there?
I was there actually working for the U.S. Embassy in the economics section as a grad student.
Wow.
Yeah.
Storied life. Vicky.
Yeah.
Vicky got a life.
She lives
I
multiple
know.
lives.
She's
She's
got all these
everywhere.
surprises all the time.
Vicky is like that that cartoon hoodwink when you think grandma is grandma, but then you find out she's riding motorcycles and, and slaying dragons and yeah.
Oh, that's perfect. That's a perfect
Yeah.
description.
Yes.
Where'd you go to grad school?
I went to the Fletcher. Well, which time?
Whoa.
See, hoodwink.
No, I went to the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy, which is in Medford, part of Tufts.
Okay.
And then I was part of the graduates. They had actually a scholarship program.
Bet.
Although I can tell you that what I know about international relations, very little of it came from Fletcher.
Huh.
I want to say, talk about not
I
learning
believe
much.
that.
Because it was myopic. It was like either very conservative or pretty conservative.
No, well.
That was your range.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand that when I went there. So, I learned so much after that.
Right. Is it
just
one of
in
those
my own
schools
studies.
where the people that you meet that you go to school with you hang on to? Or you just get the degree and you're off
Well,
and running?
It depends on the person. So I think a lot of people would have done that. And I really didn't. because I just didn't, it didn't work for me.
Because the only reason to go to Harvard is the people you meet. Everything
Okay,
you,
it's gonna
everything you
start.
learn is life,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Oh man, I was just about to ask you a great question.
What?
When did your decolonial radical liberation take place?
Oh boy. Well, I
a good
think
one.
it was over a
That's toddler.
period.
It's a toddler.
Well, first of all, yeah,
She
it
was born into it.
over the period. So I wasn't even at Fletcher long enough to really get sunk into that, for which I'm glad, But yeah, it was just through my own studying, and also, when you start paying attention to the other voices that aren't being told in the story that you're being told in grad school, that's when the light starts to go on. People like Joseph Stiglitz, who wrote Confessions of a, what did he call it? Confessions of a
Well, of Confessions of an Economic
Hitman.
That
That's
was
it.
my awakening.
That
That
was-
book.
yeah,
that
yeah,
book.
yeah.
What was it?
Yeah.
Confessions of an Economic Hitman.
It's about the CIA's operations in Central America.
Oh,
And
just-
it goes
just pulled the
country
wool
by
over your eye.
country.
and
Right.
also
60s,
about the
70s,
World
and
Bank
earlier.
and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
all of that.
the money, the power, the
Interesting.
guns, the,
Right.
yeah, the drugs.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so Facebook did something very strange, and they won't accept our stream key, so we should go ahead anyway.
Okay.
Okay.
You could
so
probably upload it. as
that's
like
the
a
way
video.
it's going to be. Okay, you see what you can. We'll work on
Totally.
that later on, but we don't want to take too long. So
Exactly.
okay.
Okay.
So-
So you see the timer on the screen?
right. So you
Okay.
don't need me to use the.
It doesn't hurt if you do it.
I don't see it.
Where else
Oh,
is
there
it
it is.
available?
There it is.
Maybe I could send
On
like a
on
Twitch
YouTube.
link.
Yeah, there's-
Or
On YouTube.
YouTube accepted it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the?
Want me to send you the YouTube
Well,
link?
can't you just do
Sure,
it on
or I could
YouTube and
search it
then
real quick.
upload it to Facebook when you're
It's
done?
exactly what we're going to
Yeah.
do.
Perfect.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, send the live link to my wife at least.
Okay, I'll send you the YouTube link.
Okay.
Get a
Sorry,
cheerleader
I'm-
waiting
I'm-
for you.
That's right. She's
I'm
on the
holding
edge
you
of
all
her
up,
seat.
Kelly.
Go team, go.
Kelly, you better tune in.
Okay, here is the YouTube link,
Thank you.
and boom, you got it. Check your Facebook messages.
Got it. Of course, no wonder why Facebook isn't accepting it. Israel-Palestine ceasefire needed.
Right. Yeah, what a crazy idea. Yeah, obviously subversive,
Yep.
Oh goodness. We're living in Orwellian times.
Seriously?
We
true.
are. We are.
It's very strange.
Right.
All right, you ready to start?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to start the countdown.
Okay. Welcome to Talking Peace with the Western New York Peace Center, being recorded here at Think Twice Radio in the home of the future, also the home of our friend and producer, Richard Wicca. Thanks, Richard. And thank you to WBNY, our friends at Buff State, Buffalo's original alternative radio station, WBNY 91.3 FM. So thank you, Buff State. And when I think of thankfulness, I do think about our Haudenosaunee friends, the fact that we are, many of us sitting here on stolen Haudenosaunee land, Seneca land, and just how much wisdom has come from our indigenous brothers and sisters who start off every day and every event by remembering and thanking Mother Earth, by thinking of the waters, the living waters that are so important, all the plants and animals of all kinds, the trees that give us the very air we breathe, the sun and the moon and the stars and the Creator and the love that makes it all go around. And so then the people say, the person says Nyahweh, and the people say Nyo. So Nyahweh.
Yep.
No.
So thank you. And I'm very grateful to be here. We are going to have a really what I think a very important show, and I'm just grateful for those of you who have come to join, and glad and grateful to you who have come to listen, and we hope that you will be talking about it and thinking about it. A lot of people are. So Israel and Palestine, right now, so many people, so much heartache, so much destruction, death and destruction is just horrific and just beyond words. So we're very grateful to have a wonderful group here to talk about it and think about, and see what we can do our part to end the madness. So, and to get a ceasefire, I think we can say that. I know it sounds crazy, but no, it is far from crazy, and it's so obvious that it's needed. So first, to invite you introduce you to our guests here. So I want to say first, we have Juman Aref. Hi, Juman.
Hi, it's so good to be back.
Well, thank
even
you.
though we're in unfortunate circumstances.
Well, it's
We're here.
so important to have you here as a second generation Palestinian American. We're very grateful to have you here.
Thank you.
And also Jane Jacobson. Jane, as a Jewish woman, as a member of Congregation Havurah, we're so glad that you're, first of all, here talking with us and doing everything that you do
Yeah.
for a peaceful world.
My pleasure.
Well, thank you, Jane. Thanks for coming. And of course, we have Sister Sabrina N'Diaye, Dr. Sabrina N'Diaye. Hi, Sabrina.
Hi, Vicki.
Thanks so much for coming. It's just so important to have you here as a woman of peace, really, a healer, storyteller, very experienced in communities with trauma, mind-body medicine, and peaceful conflict resolution. And I know you have friends there, so it's
I
been
do.
very hard. So thanks for coming from Baltimore, zooming in from Baltimore. And you'll be here soon for the Western New York Peace Center annual dinner. So
Yeah.
we're grateful. So more on that. And then last but not least, Akram Shibly. Akram, assalamu alaikum. Thank you for.
Thank you, Vicki.
Oh, thank you so much for coming. Yeah.
I feel I'm in like esteemed company. Like I definitely, I'm looking forward to this conversation, and hats off to you, Vicki, for always just being there, being such an ally and an accomplice and an advocate in all of the struggles.
Well,
It really
thanks.
means a lot.
Thanks. Well, it really means a lot to me because I've been really, like so many people, very, very upset and obsessed with, what we have to do, what we need to do, because this cannot go on. So when we think about this issue, we can go around and just about what are the values that we want to think of when we think of Israel and Palestine, the conflict, the current situation, or even the history. What are some of the values that you want to uphold in this conversation? So, Juman, if you would
Sure.
go.
So one thing that's always been a common theme with the communities I involve with is bridge building. That's how I got started. That's how I met Akram. And as we know, there is a literal and metaphorical wall separating the two people that just want to live their lives. They want to live normal lives, go to work, enjoy their hobbies, and just hear the birds and not things flying through the air. And so that's been a theme I think we should focus on. And that's the only way through this, is that we unite with the ones that are trying to see a nonviolent future together. And so those are the voices that are being silenced the most, even though there's so many of us.
Right.
They want us to believe that we're divided. And if we know that we're together, then that's all that matters. That's how we're going to see the way through this.
So that bridge building and
Bridge
unity.
building.
Thank you so much, Juman. And Jane?
I think every culture, every religion holds certain values, but we don't hold them. We don't hold our politicians to them. We run away. We let other people decide what to do. And it's true that in most countries, there is no control over your leaders. Even us in a democracy, we do not control our politicians as much as we could and should. We don't hold their feet to the fire. Yes, the corruption. People say, oh, we have lived in such a corrupt country. And I say, yeah, like the rest of us. So I think leadership is the most important thing if you have morality in leadership.
Wow.
And you bring everybody to the table and you find out what people need and what you want, and we stop this generational genocide. I don't know what else to call it.
Right.
But Israel has been in trouble for a very, very long time.
Right.
It started out in trouble. It started in the Holocaust, and it's ending in another Holocaust. Right? So, yeah.
Thanks, Jane. So,
Don't make me cry.
yeah, no, I was going to say, right. Don't you make me cry.
I'm making myself
no,
cry.
You're making me cry.
Yeah.
And Sister Sabrina, Dr.
Well, I just have to
Sabrina.
respond to the sister's tears, you know, and to just honor them and let them come and let every emotion come. Because I think one of the things that when you speak of values is what would happen if we allow people to have the freedom of an emotion without necessarily an action. Like, can we be frustrated? Can we be angry? Can we want to kill somebody? That's a feeling. But the action that goes with the feeling is what's the problem. And all of what everyone said is important and a part of my values. But what keeps coming to me was the very first time I went to Jerusalem. And she put me through the ringer. She put me through the ringer.
You mean she Jerusalem?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Jerusalem. I after I got there, I realized that Jerusalem is our mother. I sat with her, and you can believe what you want to believe about me, but I am certain that Jerusalem spoke to me, and she said, "I am your mother. I am everybody's mother, and nobody owns me. Stop fighting over me. There is enough of me to love all my children." And I left Jerusalem feeling like, oh yes, you're my mama. And I'm gonna see your children through another lens, even the ones that I don't like. And that's my struggle, is to hold our mother's children that I don't like. It's easy for me to love and be with the people that I like. That's easy. So I could say more about that, but that's been the image that I have held since I was able to visit. And I visited 3 times. And every time I saw the beauty and the severity.
Well, thanks. So that value of really feeling our feelings with no shame or hesitation, and then that feeling of connecting with Mother Jerusalem as
not having to do something because you have a feeling.
Right. Thank you.
It's powerful to
Yes.
allow our emotions, period. You know, and I think the impetus to act is always to get rid of the emotion. That's why we act, because we don't want to hold that emotion, that rage, that anger, that pain, that sorrow. And so we move to act without thinking with our hearts fully. And I got to reflect on that for some time. Some wisdom. For my value, I've been really thinking about brotherhood and sisterhood, and I'm like, what's the non-binary equivalent of that? And I think it's love, really, at its essence. But I focus on fraternity because for a lot of people who are new to this conflict, some folks perceive this as an eternal clash, between Muslims and Jews, and that could not be further from the truth. It could not be further from the truth. For those who really know our history, who know our stories, and know what we struggled through together. Struggled, specifically, I think all of our faiths are tied and united. I don't think it's Muslims and Jews against Christians, but there were times in history where Muslims and Jews had to hold one another against crusades, against Inquisition, and protect one another, and then learn together, whether it was in Jerusalem when we lived side by side, or in Spain, great scholarship flourishing, blossoming out of the exchange of our ideas. This is not our history. This is not our story. This is an aberration. It's a corruption. It's modern colonialism. And like even in the modern time, if you take Muslims and Jews out of that environment of hatred and colonization, you put them in Buffalo, New York, we're friends. You know, when I was growing up, I just wanted to go to the bat mitzvahs and the bar mitzvahs, and it was just, I always felt connected to my Jewish kin, my Jewish family. And that connection was so, I mean, we both read our books in our mother tongue, you know. It's just, I think it's so wild that powers that be and corrupt leaders throughout history have pit us against one another in this corner of the earth that, like you said, is all of our mother. So,
right. Well, that's so beautiful. That is so beautiful. That sibling love, that humanity of people together, and the Abrahamic religions also.
Absolutely.
That is very big.
One thing I'll add, this is
Sure.
Rama Youssef, he's a comedian. He
Yes.
would joke about
I've been listening to him.
Oh my God, how you know Muslims and Jews were always in on it together because we knew Santa Claus wasn't real. So
Well, and then here's the other thing is that Arabs are Semites, right? So that's another thing that is very, little paid attention to fact. Anyway, I won't start talking about hate mail, especially when I'm talking about values. So I would just, first of all, such beautiful values, and those values would get us where we need to go. But I always think of truth and love, of what Dr. King said, that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word. And Cornel West is such a philosopher, and one of the way he puts it, some of what you all said made me think, especially what you said, Jane, actually about the morality. So his version of that, sort of the same thing, it's just sort of a little different twist to it, is moral integrity and universal solidarity. If we all had both those things, the moral integrity and the universal solidarity, which is very related to truth and love. So, I first of all knew that we would have no trouble talking about this, and honestly, we shouldn't have as much trouble as we do, but it's just the fear and the preconditions and the trauma, So anyway, so now we're sort of very organically moving into our next piece of like what is going on there. So I just want to for us to go around again a little bit about sort of what we'd like to share about what is going on, the latest that we've heard, because things are happening every day. I mean, I just to lay out the basic groundwork that I'm sure that listeners know, that there was an attack on October 7th, that attack was after, 75 years since the Nakba, or the partition. It's sort of like partition. I don't think they use that word too often, but it's a lot like the partition of India and Pakistan. So people were forced to leave and flee and separate, when instead of having the humanity and the mutual respect to love and share, it was all, about separation and division. And so now we have, so there was the really heinous.
Can I just comment on that?
Sure.
Partition is a step there, but I think the distinction and why Nakba really captures what happened to the Palestinians is partition was awful. So many people died, but at least, Pakistan had its sovereignty, whereas the Nakba captures the catastrophe of the Palestinian people.
Yes.
To lose their hands, lose their homes, and lose their sovereignty.
Right. And and before, I just want to say too, as far as religions go, because we're talking about the Abrahamic religions, is that all the religions really, including Hinduism, Buddhism, the core teachings are similar.
Yeah.
about loving each other, caring for each other, caring for Mother Earth, for the planet, and having that reverence for life, reverence for the spirit.
Mm-hmm.
It's in all the religions. Even Buddhism, they'll say they don't believe in God, but they believe in that spirit and that
Synonymous term.
that energy
Yeah.
Right.
that
Energy
is the
source.
life force.
Doing good.
Right, and they're doing good, But anyway, so let's go around a little bit more about what's going. And then, of course, there's all the bombing, and the U.S. coming with all of our weapons and arms. And I hear that we want to arm both sides now.
Oh, my
So
goodness.
yeah, so
There's so much. I just
I
had a
know.
question, actually, because this is my first hearing that October 7th. I know it's been 75 years since the Nakba. Was the Nakba in October 1948? Or
now that I don't know. And also, I want to say, as somebody, I didn't say that my dad was there. He was kicked out of Nazi Germany as a 15-year-old in 1933 because he was such a radical. So he refused to say Heil Hitler when he went to get his prize at his school. He, beat up the leader of the Hitler Youth. He did some different things, and they said, we're going to take care of you. You better leave, or we're taking care of you.
Yeah.
So he went to what was then Palestine, and so he was there, and on a kibbutz, and then he ended up joining the British Army, and then joining the British police, and then the British Army, and then he changed his name from Rosenbaum to Ross. So
Incognito.
yeah, he thought, I don't know what he thought about the German accent that he never lost. So I think they wouldn't have thought he was too British or Scottish or something like that.
Right. Well, it's very British. Ross.
Yeah, Ross. But anyway, so
Interesting.
at that, so I want to say, all of that, there was fighting going on already.
Yeah.
We think that he was in the Haganah, which was the Jewish underground, because of some letters, of some correspondence that he had. So I'm going to say it isn't like, maybe there is a day that was the big day that was, but there were things happening before then. So things aren't all that clear cut, I would say.
Absolutely.
But let's go around with the current situation a little bit, and people want to share, the things that are very striking to you about the current situation. So,
Yeah.
so just, we'll go
Absolutely.
for Juman.
So, as a Palestinian, it's one thing to speak on Palestine because it seems like no matter what angle you take, even if you're trying to sympathize with every viewpoint, you feel like you have to tiptoe because people don't want to come to terms with the fact that these people have been trapped in, and it's not an open-air prison. It's prison is a place for people who've done something wrong. And these
Right.
people are just there. They've done nothing
Right.
but exist. And one thing that I think people need to understand is that it was provoked over time, but people were saying, this was an unprovoked attack, and people are dying at disproportionate rates when the people on the other side are living these lavish lives on top of graves of their people. And so when we kind of discuss honoring the land, honoring the place that we're in, we have to acknowledge that, yes, everyone's life is important. No one deserves to die. But we have to acknowledge the disparities between groups that are right next to each other. They're neighbors. There's no reason for the lack of equity in that region. And so that's what the Palestinians are fighting for, is the equity. They want to see their kids play together, because if you go to Gaza, the kids are asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? In America, they say a doctor, a lawyer. I want to go to the moon. In Gaza, the kids are saying, we don't grow up in Gaza. We don't get to be adults. Because they that's all they know. They know a short life. They know a life of suffering, because if they were born in the last 20 years, you've been trapped in those four walls. And when you're pushed into a corner, what do you do? So it's hard to vocalize that. And I love that you echoed the idea of feeling something without having to act on it, because these people have been feeling and feeling and feeling for years. What else can they do to help themselves? And things erupted out of necessity almost. They don't have an army, an official army. They barely have resources. And I mean, I don't think that the people who are living there as civilians just trying to play and work should be held accountable for anyone else's actions when all they
Right.
did was be born.
Right. Right.
And it's a collective punishment we're seeing.
Yes, which is illegal under international law
Right.
also. So, Jane?
Well, this whole uprising is to get attention to a cause.
Mm-hmm.
And the Ukrainian war has really overshadowed so much of the news. And the news is like one media cycle away from what's exciting. And thank God this is in the news. And maybe it's appropriate because this battle's been going on for such a long time. And Israel's been brushing under the rug as long as they could get away with it. So about 10 years ago, there was this Jewish American organization that was supported by lots of non-Jews called AIPAC. And it's still around today. But I remember being involved in some discussions then, and there were very, very, very few American Jewish people who would not support Israel. It was like your job. And all the promises of two-state solution. But I knew in my heart of hearts it was never, ever, ever going to happen. Ever. You were going to absorb some Palestinians into the Israeli population, and the rest were just going to get pushed and pushed. So I just brought a little map so you could all appreciate
good.
this. So this is, I don't know if you can really see this, but this is
Hold it up
Gaza.
for see.
See this little tiny dot? This little tiny
I'll
dot.
be your board, and you can point to it.
Okay, let me see if I can
No, it was
see
a
right
little
through it.
lower.
Not a little down?
lower. Yep.
Right here.
That's,
Okay,
that's
okay.
Good. That's good.
So see this little dot right here? This tiny little spot is land has 81% of the Palestinian population in Gaza, right? 81%. 10% in Lebanon, which is this big area. Jordan, the hatchet over here, 37%. And we're here. Syria, 3%. And then there's lots in other places. Lots. But none of these spaces are experiencing what Gaza is experiencing.
Right.
And it's almost as though the machinery of war is trying to say, we're going to squeeze you down and we're going to squeeze you out. And we're going to hope that Egypt takes you, or Syria takes you, or Jordan takes you, or whatever. But sitting from the position in America, we have the luxury. This is a nation where the Aboriginal people were squashed like bugs and dehumanized and completely erased until there was this little spark of, well, I guess we're secure now, lost colonies. We're secure now. We can let people have some land and have some voice, and maybe we'll let them have a little piece of the action. And I'm hoping that what this does, this whole situation does, is it allows these 2.5 million people who are scattered all over the planet to have voices from the rest of the world, because there are so many refugees spread around the world. So many Palestinians. They're everywhere. They're everywhere, just like Armenians, just like Jews. We have refugees among us in all parts of the world. Why can't we get along? Why can't we put pressure on our governments to make something happen instead of just wipe each other out? I don't understand how the West Bank has been allowed under Netanyahu to have so many settlements. Every U.S. president just looked the other way.
Right.
While the settlers are armed,
So
they're
right.
backed by the military, and they just let them have the land. And I understand both points of view. I understand that these settlers believe that, like they're Jews from whenever, but there's no such thing as an Aboriginal Jew. There's no
Right.
such thing as an Aboriginal Palestinian. There was always there was a Neanderthal, there were animals, there was something. Might makes right, and we have to accommodate people. The problem is the cycle of violence.
Right.
If we could get people
Exactly.
to the table so we can stop the cycle of violence, because we know that this generation is going to produce ugliness in the next generation and the next generation, next generation. So if all the refugees could put enough pressure on the government, life would be much better.
Yep.
Right. Oh, so important. You're so right. Thank you, Jane. Thank you for all of that. And Dr. N'Diaye, Sabrina, what would you say about what's going on right now?
I'm struggling with, like Sister Jane mentioned, I struggle with the fact that I even get to sit here and have this conversation. I struggle with the fact that I get to change the topic sometimes. That I get to go take a walk and shake my body and, snuggle with my cat and take a nap to get away from the feeling of sorrow that I have. That's one piece. And the other piece is I'm fascinated with the number of people who did not know what was going on all these years until October 8th. I mean, because it took them a day or two to say, oh, snap, this is happening? As if it just started the night before.
Right.
And so I'm struggling with gratitude that people know, and I'm pissed off that they didn't know.
Right.
Like, where the heck have you been?
Right.
Well, in a perfect world, we'd just be living our lives, right? We
Right.
wouldn't have to worry about that stuff.
We wouldn't have to know about it. We wouldn't have to worry about it. And, as a Black woman, as a Muslim, as an African American, I remember when I first went to the Middle East and I was with my brothers from Gaza, and talk about having emotions, I blew the F up. I was stomping, I was screaming, I was crying, like heaving. When my friends, these brothers that I love, number one, were completely emasculated to meet me in Jordan on their way for no crime. And number two, all the maneuvering that they had to go through to get back home. And then the fact that they couldn't even leave with me and go to Jerusalem. And I was like, you never been to Jerusalem? No, we've never been. And it's okay, Sabrina, you got a blue passport, you can go.
Exactly. Think how many Palestinians have never been to Jerusalem.
Right.
Well, that's what they were. Yeah,
That's why. That's what she's
Palestinian.
saying.
They had never been. And so I have like all these different feelings about not just what's happening now, but all that led up to this explosion. That, of course, as a Muslim, I can say it is completely against our faith to engage in that kind of act of war.
Right.
And as a therapist, as a healer, as a human, I also can understand how someone could erupt into a revolt like that. Because I'm a Black girl, and I know Nat Turner was real.
Right.
And I know what happens when you turn someone into an animal. And then you're shocked when they act like one. What? You did what?
Right. So you had Jerusalem fever.
I did. I had the fever.
Jerusalem fever. That's what it's called. There's a name for it.
When I got home, I was on fire. I had to figure out how to put out the fire. And I put out the fire through the teachings of my sheikh, who was an imam at the Al-Aqsa Masjid. But my point is,
And that's just from a visit.
Of what's going on. You're
Just from a visit.
brother. That was the thing. Just from a visit.
Not living
Just
under
a
it,
visit.
not being born
No.
into it.
No, but that's what
No.
happens. My mother
Okay.
lived in Jerusalem for 23 years, and I went to
Wow.
visit her multiple times. She worked in 2 gift shops, and she was an amateur archaeologist. And she would describe, people would come into the shop to buy something, and she could speak English, Yiddish, and Hebrew. So, that covers Germans, and, almost everyone speaks English now. People would come and she'd say, how are you? How do you like Jerusalem? And they would start crying because they were overwhelmed by the history
right.
and the religion and the beauty of the place, and walking into a building that was built in, like 200 AD,
Right.
right?
Right.
We
Right.
don't
It's a
have
lot.
that here. We
Right.
don't have that here. We're not church going. Religion lives in Israel. Sorry, I'm talking out of turn,
Right,
but
that's
religion
right.
lives in Israel
Yes.
much, much more on the surface, even though the majority of the secular population doesn't keep kosher and doesn't do anything else.
Right.
But it's alive because of the history.
There's another piece that I saw in Israel that is the biggest harm. It has nothing to do with religion, and please forgive me if anyone takes offense at this. But I saw the lie, the chronic lie of American racism there. The disease of American racism was palpable, and its hoof prints all over the place. And even the inception is rooted in American racism. You know, when did Jews become white? You know, and I'm not judging you, but I'm saying, like, this whole whiteness thing, this lie is it's harming us so deeply. This lie of race. And it makes sense if you're in danger, like your brother, I mean your dad, Sister Vicky, like, I better be a damn Ross.
That's right.
Go be Ross. Ross is a white man. I'm gonna go over here and where I'm safe. And it's so harmful, and it's so insidious. And from my lens, I'm looking at the big lens, and I feel like racism is like holding on to its last little. But that's what we have to crush.
Right.
It's like I am holding on as hard as I can, but it doesn't want to let go. But I see it every time I leave this country, and of course every time I'm here.
Right.
And so.
Yeah, dehumanization.
Oh yeah, you are not. And there's only one way to be. And I don't believe most of these people that we're discussing have a religion, because if they had a religion,
right,
these murders wouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
You can't have a true religion that's based in love.
Right.
And murder people.
You can be a good person.
She is a good person. And Akram, what would you say?
I'm sorry, brother. I done took off.
Yeah, no.
I'm bad.
No,
I'm
thank
interrupting.
You. Thank you. No, it's
Well, I
just
think,
a
we
talking
get
circle, but
animated.
Yeah.
I was hoping
it's
y'all would
big.
just run the clock and
No,
I would
we
be able
want
to
it.
just
We
sit
want
back
it.
and nod because
No, you come ahead.
I have so much bubbling inside me. The pain, the intellectual frustration, because literally it seems like, Juman, like what you were speaking, that people are looking at this in a vacuum. Like they don't. Not only are they unawares or willfully ignorant of the history, not just of Palestine and Israel, but of our nation, you know, and all of this teaching that we've done to our youth to honor indigenous communities, to reflect on our crimes and the trails of tears and the displacement and dehumanization, and then you see the cycle repeating itself, and it's like, do you not see the connection here?
Yeah.
Do you not see the same project in force? Literally, you can take a map of westward expansion and all the displacement of the indigenous populations across Turtle Island, across this land. You could put it up against the map of Israel and the displacement of Palestinians.
Yeah.
And it's just so, it's tough. It's tough to witness in my lifetime. But the real sad thing is, it's not like this, even for myself, to be serious with myself and to be real with myself. Like, I forgot Palestine too, because for the 30 years that I've been alive, Palestine has been occupation. I remember Muhammad Dara, the young boy, getting killed in his father's arms, you know, seeing that image growing up. First Intifada, second Intifada, the March of Return in 2018, where people were peacefully marching up to the wall and they were just getting sniped down. Like, this has been happening every day of my life. And for years, it's like the amnesia hit me too. Well, what were we doing here? Well, we were fighting police brutality, you know, the dehumanization of Black Americans. That's our daily reality here, and people of color in America. And I see all of these struggles are interconnected. And I see this, like, almost, like you said, racism, if you look at it as like a force and a being just like trying to maintain its grip on a world that has had enough. Because also today, we're seeing more young folks speaking about Palestine than I've ever had when I was growing up, you know, on TikTok and social media, because I think everybody's got the power to tell their story now, and their lies are falling apart. Yet at the same time, it's still people power, the masses up against few people who wield all the power. And I just...
And they say the string of lies is short. And so eventually you run out of things to put out, because then it all comes back full circle. And even yesterday was actually, I think, 10 years since my grandmother in Palestine, Allah yarhamha, God rest her soul, passed away. And that was in 2013. The same things were happening. So this is something that Palestinians have in their blood. We've only seen struggle. If you've lived through the last 75 years, you've only seen struggle.
So one of the things, and I mentioned this before, it comes through is the trauma.
Yeah.
So and it's filtered through every discussion of that each one, the things that each one of us have been sharing, is that trauma and the history of trauma. And I want to say for Jewish people, the history of trauma goes to, before Christ. It goes to
The Romans.
the Babylonians, the Egyptians, all of that. Then the getting blamed, with Jesus, all of that, and then the centuries of pogroms, and then the Holocaust. So we're not surprised. So one of the things that happens, people's DNA will change with trauma, so that over, historic trauma, there are effects, very real effects that are nature and nurture. So that is going on very much with Jewish people, very much with Palestinian people. But the other thing that's going on, I'm going to say two other things. One, the children, the fact that more than about half of Palestine is children. So all of the war crimes, and we need to talk about international law too, that all of the war crimes are so intensified by the fact that half of the people there are children, and there's no other way. There's nowhere for them to go. There's nothing else that can really, that cannot be ignored. So one of the things when, the fact that Facebook wouldn't take our stream because it said that ceasefire is needed, because it said, because one of the things I try to do writing this up is so that if somebody doesn't listen to the, if they just see it, they don't watch it as a video or as a audio, that they'll get something. Well, so one of them is call Biden. So, that I can read you the number in a minute, but to call Biden and to call our elected representatives and tell them that we need a ceasefire. Because the other thing that's happening, so you said it's just like the usurping of all the indigenous land, and that people want the water there too. That's the other thing. So people are getting cut off from their water, cut off from their olive trees, cut off, and that might is right. And the West has wanted to have that friend in the region that will be our bastion. So apparently there is a big, huge U.S. military base that's being built over there. And the other thing I want to mention is that Carrie Horn, just a local, shero, just came back from there. And she said that when she was talking to somebody, and she mentioned that she was an former police officer, and they said, "Oh yeah, we had the New York City police here, and our military was training them." And she said, "Oh really?" So there's when if you attach it to the things like Cop City and the militarization and all of the arms that and all of the political response to domestic trouble is be a war president. So I know we were talking about this earlier. So, that BB was having, massive demonstrations. And all of a sudden, it's like, well, let's not do that anymore because we've got another problem.
And I want to speak to the betrayal, too. I want to speak to the betrayal because American Muslims, people of color, women, we all came out in full force to elect Biden. And I want to just put that out there because this has been a huge letdown. This has been a huge letdown. And, it's really behooves us to also reflect on America's role in
Yes.
like you said, like you were saying, in the creation of Israel. Israel, it's a state supposedly created for Jewish people, but it's really an extension of American colonial interests and the
Absolutely.
interests of the West. It is a puppet. And I do believe at its core, I want to say I love America because I love American people, but America as a nation, as a force, does not love us in that way.
Yeah.
It does not. It does not. It would pit Jew and Muslim against one another so that it can have a proxy in the Middle East. And Biden is proving himself to be a butcher. He's creating a bloodbath. And
Easy.
Well, the greatest
I'd like to put a
purveyor-
little pushback on
Yeah.
that one.
No,
no, go ahead, please push back because
The great-
I feel very betrayed. I feel very betrayed.
Right, but you have to look at the geopolitical reality. Who are the great powers? Who are the great powers?
U.S.
U.S.
Well, the U.S.,
Who else?
China, and Russia.
Russia, right. And where does their territory lie? China has enemies surrounding it. It's big, right? And it's got a huge mouth to feed.
Mm-hmm.
India seems to be doing well as a democracy right now.
Well,
right? Better.
We could talk some more about
We could talk about that, but it's right now. It seems to be okay. There are a lot of countries that are neutral that don't get involved. Russia's really flexing its muscles in a kind of a magical, we're going to be great again. Putin has his own, I'm going to be great again.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
America needs to find the delicate little path. I think he's aligning himself with his traditional allies as best he can, but he can't control everything.
So what I need to say, though, we have international law. And actually, we were talking before about my background. I went to Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy. So when we look at international law, it will tell us what to do. When we look at our international organizations, if they were empowered to do anything, if they were able to do anything, then we would have some solutions here because, first of all, war is illegal. It's been illegal since 1927-8, and certainly in the U.S. since 1929. Didn't stop the Second World War, far from it. But war is illegal. Proportionality is important. Leaving the civilians alone, not bombing and of course, back to what we said. So the U.S. is a mixed bag in some respects, but it is still, as Dr. King said, the greatest purveyor of violence in the world is my own government. Certainly, we are the biggest by far on our arms that are enough. It's the next 9 countries put together, but how much are those other 180 countries, these tiny little countries, their military budgets are tiny.
Yeah.
So the U.S. is spending the 40% of the world's arms
Yeah.
expenses.
Right.
And then we're the biggest purveyor of violence because we sell all the arms. And I just heard that the U.S. wants to arm both sides now, which, of course, that cha-ching. That Boeing, Lockheed Martin, they're raking in the dough, and they will even
Foaming
say
at the
this
mouth.
is good for our bottom line.
Yeah.
Watch it grow.
I mean, sorry, you go first.
But how can we, as citizens of this country, no matter what the outcome, ever say that is okay?
Yeah, it's not okay.
Like we have control.
But so
No, we
that's
don't.
where
But we can control. We can't control. We can't control Biden. We can't control Putin. We can't control any of these people. How Bibi became reelected. Like, what the heck, right? However, what we can control is our own bodies, our own being, how we interact, and stand by a clear ethical line, no matter what.
Yeah.
And so what I hear my brother saying is, our president showed up day one and said, oh, you got beat up. Let me give you some stuff to fight. Instead of saying, oh, you got beat up again. let's see how we can make sure you don't keep getting beat up and that these other people don't get killed because you got beat up. And that is how I felt when I heard what he said. And, not even if I wasn't
Absolutely.
Muslim, even if I wasn't Black, even if I was just a girl that lived in Baltimore, I would say we can find a better way to respond to this horrible crime against those grandmothers.
I need to say, first of all, our time is going quick because there's a lot to say, and it's a great. So we're not ready to spin out yet. But I do want to say, first of all, President Biden's number is 202.
Oh,
Let me get a pen.
556.
Is this a direct line, Sister Vicky?
Yeah. Oh, if
202.
only, if only. But you can leave your opinion at the very least, or talk to, maybe even talk to a person. 202-456-1111. That's the first thing.
All right.
So call them every day. Call them as often as you want.
It's hysterical.
And then the number now, it's easy enough, and I think it's still on the Western New York Peace Center website for Congress, for our particular, our two senators and, the local Congress people. But I can tell you that to get into the Capitol, to get any congressional representatives, Congress people or senators, just call 202-224-3121. 202-224-3121. And I want to say I wrote an op-ed that is in the Buffalo News from Friday the 27th that said basically there is no violent solution. I saw that on a bumper sticker. I've always loved that because it's so true. There isn't. But anyway, that it seems to me that what is needed is a ceasefire, because just stop the violence. And then, of course, negotiations, which means, getting humanitarian aid to the people who need it wherever they are. And they certainly desperately need it in Gaza. And also getting the hostages freed, getting people home to their homes, to their families. So those things we need. And then the other thing is we need international law. And that can be a guiding force to rein people in and then actually, work out a solution. But first we need to stop the bloodletting.
Yes.
It has to happen. And that is a radical idea is insane to me.
Yeah.
But anyway, so ways that people can get involved, I would just say the Western New York Peace Center, you can look and see. We do try to, promote and publicize different events that are happening locally or nationally. Nationally, there's going to be a big gathering in Washington this coming Saturday, the 4th, or as people are hearing this on Monday, it will be over by the time you're hearing this on the radio. But there'll be other ones, and there's always Women in Black, which is at Bidwell and Elmwood on every Saturday from noon to 1. So people are welcome to come there. I want to say Jewish Voice for Peace has been a big, huge help locally and nationally. They have, and that's the voice of, never again is now, and especially not by us. Never again is now. So I just want us to go around and people, give your final, thoughts, sort of bottom line to you, including especially what you would like to see other people do, what you plan to do yourself, that kind of thing. So, Juman?
It's hard to start.
hard.
I know Akram had something to say, so I want him to start.
Yeah, and
before
actually, I don't want to have the last word, so I will.
You start with the last one.
I'll say, I just want to just kind of close the loop on the Biden thing, and I hope I didn't disturb you with that strong language and strong image, and I know I got to keep a cool head about these things. I speak in those terms because this is what history will remember. This is the most pivotal moment for him right now in terms of an international leader. And to continue this bloodshed, to sponsor this bloodshed, if this leads to the erasure of Gaza, history will not look to him kindly. So that's why I use that strong term. But I don't want him to be the focus of this discussion, even though he needs our voice and he needs to. He can make a difference. I know he can.
Absolutely.
I think of this story because in honoring, the Haudenosaunee people and the creation of the great law of peace, which is actually the bedrock of our democracy.
Yes.
There's a really powerful story, and essentially there was this time of conflict and war, and this evil war chief, Toradaho, he killed Hiawatha's family, his wives, his children, and the peacemaker taught Hiawatha how to grieve his loved ones, and then convinced him not to seek revenge on Toradaho, and instead to work to comb the evil out of his minds. And they have this image of the snakes being combed out of Toradaho's mind, and then finally they unite in peace, because Hiawatha had every right to go and fight and kill because of the pain and grief he was in. But to learn to grieve your loved ones, to feel, right, without taking action, and instead to come together with the person who killed your family and just move into a new direction. And I think, like, what are the snakes in our mind here? What is biting? What is poisoning the people of Gaza? The lack of freedom, the lack of the ability to move, the no prospects for a future, being regulated, all of this, the dehumanization. Can we comb that out and just end this cycle of violence? Because revenge, it's not going to lead to peace.
Yeah.
Right.
Someone has to pull the plug on what's going in, because we can't just keep fueling it. And I think that's sort of what we're getting at. There has to be another way. With one of the strongest armies in the world being funded by another strong army, the U.S., you would think there would be some sort of like special rescue force, because someone posed a hypothetical scenario that if there was a militant target in Israel in a building, Israel wouldn't blow up the building if its own citizens were in there. So there's a very clear indication that there's a lack of regard for Palestinian life, because we are seen as disposable. We are seen as human animals, children of darkness. Those are the words coming from the people who are leading. And so this is kind of saying that the leaders have a responsibility to speak carefully when they are, saying no red lines, right? Do whatever you need to, because life is not in black and white. We live in the gray. And after the war is over, there was some poet that said, the leaders will shake hands and the mother will wait for her martyred son to return home. And so we're not going to get anywhere by continuing to throw fuel into the fire. We have to pull back our resources from that region, call for a ceasefire, and then that one side obviously has defensive technology. So if anything comes over, eventually they'll have to stop fighting. Eventually it has to end somewhere. The bloodshed always has to end. It's hard when you have limited time, so I'll just move forward, but it has to end.
It has to end. Thank you, Juman.
Yeah. Well, I do know just from listening to lots of historians that Israel does not have a plan. They are not, they don't know what they're going to do. This was a total surprise. Netanyahu got caught with his pants down, basically. He didn't know this was coming, and neither did anybody else. But I have a lot of relatives in Israel, and I wanted to read this little thing from my cousin Sharon.
Oh, please, yeah.
So, which is, she's doing a big blog about this. And I'll just read this. So it says, now back to the fact that my new dentist is an Arab, and more specifically to the complex question of how Jews and Arabs are getting along with each other in Israel right now. As far as my spouse and I and most of our friends are concerned, there is no problem. We get along, and we have always gotten along. Our lawyer is an Arab. Our pharmacist is an Arab. 3 of our doctors are Arabs. I do, however, because this is the nature of the beast, I do, however, have a small minority of friends, most of whom lost someone in the Hamas attack in the south, who admit that right now they have a problem with Arabs. This is their trauma speaking. And no amount of explanation that not all Arabs and not even all Palestinians are associated with Hamas will help. Only time will hopefully resolve this. Time and what happens after the war. So this is the problem. Hamas they are terrorists, they are evil. The Palestinians are victims. We are victims. The Israeli population are victims. It's not so easy.
Yeah.
Right. So I say pray for them all.
Yes.
Right?
Pray.
America has a big role to play, can put a lot of pressure on the situation.
Right. That's so true. Thanks, Jane.
So we need to get along.
Right, we need to. And Sister Sabrina.
Well, there's just so many. What am I supposed to be doing? I'm supposed to be wrapping it up.
Well, we're wrapping it up because we have two minutes,
3 minutes.
left.
But you could be
Not
okay.
even 2 minutes.
So all I keep being reminded of the teachings of my sheikh, and he passed away November 11th, 8 years ago. And one of the things that he told us was, if you're really about being a peace builder, first of all, no matter what you call yourself, study your religion. And then you will discover what your true religion is. And maybe you won't need your religion because you will be living it. And the other, I'm totally paraphrasing him. The other thing that he said to us was, you don't have to run all over the place trying to work for peace. You can start right in your own house, start in your own home, start in your own community. And that's one of the things that I guide people to do, because in this present moment, we can't go over there.
Right.
But we're all connected. We're all related. There's no separation. And so what I am doing and what I'm guiding other people to do is maybe you need to make that call to your brother-in-law about the bull crap fight you had about the Trump election.
Right. Right.
Oh, no.
Maybe that's
Maybe
that's the
it.
thing. Like maybe
Right.
that's the thing you have to do, because the separation in Israel also contributed to this fire that's going on right now, right? We know that it was a big kerfluffle. So what I'm trying to do, what I want to guide other people to do, is start right here.
Right.
What is the step you need to take that makes you uncomfortable, that you know you have to do if you're really going to call yourself a peace builder?
Thank you. Yes, thank you. That is so true. And everything it's all connected, as we heard in different strains, and we're all connected. So thank you, everyone, so much. So we need to try and do all of those things, and mostly to keep the faith and to be living our principles and the spirit. So I'm so grateful to each one of you for all that you've shared. It's been wonderful to be here with you. I cannot thank you enough. And Sister Sabrina will be with us at the Western New York Peace Center annual dinner. So
Y'all coming?
and other times as well.
there.
So more to
yay.
see you on that. That's November 10th, wnypeace.org. Meanwhile, so grateful. This is Talking Peace, and together we have been talking peace in truth and love.